Good evening, I'm Jim Gardner of WPVI-TV.
And I'm Bill Buetel of WABC-TV. Welcome to our debate featuring the candidates for the Republican nomination for governor of New Jersey.
You may be familiar with the candidates. You may have read about them or have watched their commercials on television and radio. Tonight, the candidates are together in our Trenton studio as WPVI and WABC broadcast to the entire state of New Jersey. We are looking forward to a lively and informative exchange as the candidates discuss the issues face to face. Here are the candidates. Christine Todd Whitman of Tewksbury, New Jersey. She is a former president of the State Board of Public Utilities. James Wallwork of Far Hills, a former state senator. And Cary Edwards of Oakland, former state representative and former state attorney general in New Jersey.
Our format tonight consists of questions from reporters with answers from the candidates. The candidates will also talk directly to one another about the topics they would like to discuss. Each will have a closing statement at the end of the debate, and the order of the candidates was determined by random drawing earlier this week. To ensure fairness throughout the debate, there are time limits on each answer. Asking questions of the candidates, along with Jim Gardner and me, are Rita Mano, political editor for the Courier-Post, Dan Weisman, reporter for the Star-Ledger, Darlene Superville, State House reporter for the Associated Press.
It is time to begin, and Rita Mano has the first question, and it goes to Christine Whitman.
Thank you, Jim. Christy, you've blasted Governor Florio for not being the economic czar you felt he should have been in New Jersey. Given the fact this recession and recovery are unlike any other that we've ever seen, and that United States businesses are not really laying off workers as much as eliminating jobs, name at least two things that you would do that Governor Florio isn't doing now to make a dent in the state's high unemployment rate.
Well, first of all, Rita, I'd be much more aggressive in trying to keep the businesses we have here in the state. We are in a very competitive environment now, you're right, and that means we have to try even harder. It means we've got to go review our regulatory process because it is costing us jobs, it's costing this state the ability to do business here. So we need to have an aggressive policy to keep the businesses we have here. We also need to do a much better outreach job. Right now, Mercedes-Benz is looking at looking at 15 states. They want to locate a new plant. We ought to be really trying to bring them here. That's important. It's a combination of we've got to get this state's fiscal house in order so we can get our tax policies in the position where we can have a stable tax policy and reduce those taxes that Governor Florio put on business, which has hurt us so much. Those things together will make a significant difference, and I don't see that he's taken the first steps to do that.
Mr. Wallwork, you can have a response.
Well, as a businessman, I've created jobs in the private sector, and I know the problems that business people are facing because I've taken tanks out of the ground. I've worked with the Division of Taxation and all the other departments of state government. We have to condense and strip out the unnecessary rules and regulations. That's what's stifling business and killing jobs. Florio has not done that. It's been bigger bureaucracy, more rules and regulations. That would be job number one so far as I'm concerned. I'd appoint a task force the day after I'm elected to strip out these unnecessary rules and regulations. Beyond that, we should be looking to expand the economy. I'd take McGuire Air Force Base and make it into a civilian cargo center if it's closed down by the military, because I believe that would create jobs and have a good economic climate there.
Mr. Edwards?
Thank you. I proposed a specific plan to move New Jersey's economy forward. It includes tax cuts, 4 of them right now. Mrs. Whitman, by the way, does not support that middle-class tax cut for income taxes, research and development credits, investment tax credits, elimination of the double taxation on subchapter S businesses, and do it now. We can't afford to wait until a new governor is elected. And the legislature said they're going to reduce spending by $500 million. We need to do that now. There are people in New Jersey that are hurting very, very badly. Real people with real lives. We lead this nation in mortgage foreclosures and personal bankruptcies. Those people can't afford to survive. And government, and Jim Florio doesn't understand it, government does have a role to play in what New Jersey's economy is. We're last in this nation, and we should be first.
Mr. Weisman now with a question for Jim Wallwork.
Yeah, good evening, Jim. There's a case pending in the state Supreme Court right now that goes beyond the issue of funding, and it goes to the very heart and structure of New Jersey schools. The court is being asked to determine whether it should order the regionalization of schools in the predominantly white Tenafly and Englewood Cliffs districts with the predominantly black Englewood School District for the purpose of racial balance. If you were given the opportunity to appear before the court, what would your argument be?
Well, I believe in the neighborhood school system, and I believe in local control and local government, and I don't believe that the state should be mandating and the court should be mandating into private people and into the school districts. I believe that that's a judgment for the local people to determine, and if you start forced regionalization of schools, then the court is stepping in, and the court then is taking over the power of local people. I think that's wrong. Number one. I think number two, it's going to lead for more busing. I think it's going to lead to quite a number of problems throughout the state of New Jersey. I believe that if you want to have regionalization, the state should provide the climate for people to do it, not on a mandatory basis, but they would do it on a voluntary basis. And I think that's the way the program as governor that I would do, because I think you have to provide opportunities for all people for a good quality of education. But I firmly believe that the neighborhood school is the best place for young people to learn.
Sponsor, Mr. Edwards.
I proffered a plan that deals with New Jersey's future, a plan for New Jersey's future. It's about getting back to basics. It fundamentally addresses taxes, spending, and jobs in New Jersey, education, and crime. The education piece is very, very specifically focused on neighborhood schools, reversing the trend for a Trenton-run system to a community-run system. We can regionalize administrative services. We need to get principals out of being administrators and principals back to being the principal educator in each school district. Design a unique school system for each community and regionalize administrative costs, cut costs, and improve education by bringing it back to the community to teach the kids where they are, not where we wish they are, and one designed for the demographics of each student in this state.
And a response to that question from Ms. Whitman.
In my blueprint for a better education, I have said that the most important thing is to ensure that we have core curriculum standards. That means it doesn't matter where a child goes to school in this state, they get the same basic level of education. That's what they're striving for, is equality of education. That's the most important thing. We've got to get politics out of the school system. We've got to ensure that we have those core curricular standards. I support site-based management to recognize that each one of our school districts pulls from different economic groups with different problems, have different needs in meeting the goals of education. But we have to ensure that the same level is there for every student in this state, and that it's high enough to mean that they can get a meaningful job or go on to more education and be mainstream upon completion of high school.
Darlene Superville, you have a question for Cary Edwards.
Thank you. Cary, New Jersey's suburbs saw dramatic growth in the past decade, and that left many of the state's urban centers to suffer a lot of problems, including declining tax bases, increased crime, and housing and infrastructure problems. Does your plan for New Jersey's future include an urban policy, and if elected governor, what specifically would you do to help cities like Camden and Vineland, Newark, and Asbury Park thrive like their suburban cousins?
My plan for New Jersey's future and getting back to basics is also a plan for urban New Jersey. New Jersey is the most urbanized state in the nation. We have over 50 urban areas in New Jersey, not just Camden and Newark and Jersey City. It is getting back to providing a safe environment for people to live in. No one wants to work and live in a neighborhood that isn't safe. Providing an education for the children that go there, a real education, one designed for that neighborhood and for that community. No one wants to live or raise their family in a town in which the education system doesn't work. And to provide decent jobs, and jobs within reasonable proximity to where those people live. And we've put a lot of Band-Aids and a lot of very exotic programs for urban New Jersey and America over the last 30 years. They're treating symptoms. They're not treating the fundamental virus. You can't have an urban enterprise zone or cultural centers or anything that really works in the urban center in this state until you've gotten to the basics. Safe streets, an education system that works, and a decent job. I have the experience to deliver that.
Ms. Whitman, your response?
Perhaps the most important thing that we can do for our urban centers is job creation, and that means the state getting its fiscal house in order so that it can start providing the stimulus in the private sector to get jobs and create more jobs in the urban centers. I would also like to see urban resource centers created so that you have one single place for all the various services that are available that include the private sector as well, and the nonprofit sector, because there are a lot of important programs that are going on through the private and nonprofits. And perhaps the most important thing to remember is government's not going to solve all the problems. We have to work with the people in the communities and give them the tools that they need so that they can really make a difference where they live, because it's what they want. They're there every day. It's not like a government person who comes in during the day to help them and then leaves at night.
Mr. Wallwork.
Darlene, I represented Newark for 8 of the 16 years that I served in the legislature. And I'm quite familiar with urban problems. The basic problem that I see as governor that I would be working on is housing. I like sweat equity. I like the opportunity for people to own their own house, to have a piece of the pie, so to speak. So we can create the opportunities for people to own their own house, solve the problems of the neighborhoods, then begin to reach into the schools to make sure that we have a good school system where the kids go to school, they can learn, the parents are interacting with the teachers, and then business will come back into the neighborhoods and stabilize, and that will create the jobs that we need, the entrepreneurial skills that the people have. There are great people in the city of Newark. We've got to help them.
Okay, thank you. I have a question now for Ms. Whitman. Ms. Whitman, you, as most Republicans in New Jersey do, complain about the high level of taxation, Governor Florio's tax package, $2.2 billion. You say you would be very happy if it rolled back, if it were eliminated, but you refuse to this moment, at any rate, to make a commitment, to make that a part of your platform, to commit to getting rid of those taxes. Why are you unwilling to make a commitment, and would you explain how you would go about rolling back the taxes anyway?
Well, Bill, from the very beginning, what I have said is the goal of my administration is to roll back the remaining 2.2. But you got to understand, there's been a lot of programs and expenditures that have gone along with that. So the way to get ourselves into the position where we can start rolling them back, there's some immediate tax relief we can give to business, and I have called for elimination of the S-Corp differential, an R&D tax credit for businesses. But we have to do two things. First, we have to cut government spending, and we do that by having an operations performance audit of every department of state government, which tells us not just how much they're spending, but how they're spending it, why they're spending it, where they're spending it, so we can make the kind of cuts we need to make intelligently and not hurt ourselves. We too often have given up the long-range value for short-term gains. We have to get our fiscal house in order. The second side of it is we have got to start stimulating the private sector to provide more revenues to government. We do those two things, we're going to put ourselves in the position to be able to roll back all of those taxes.
Mr. Wallwork, your response.
Well, Bill, I'm the only candidate that's pledged to roll back what's left of the Florio $2.8 billion tax increase. That's a 4% cut a year over the first 4 years of my administration, $550 million a year rolled back to eliminate. This tax increase has killed the economy and hurt the people and killed jobs in the state of New Jersey. I know as a businessman that this can be done because I've run a business successfully in the private sector for 25 years. I'm going to go after specifics. I'm going to use the line item veto. I'm going to go after the Division of Consumer Affairs. It's grown up from 14 and just in the small office to 34 people. They have 4 public relations people where they used to have 1. The Violent Crimes Compensation Board, just a political patronage. I'm going to go after the political patronage pension systems, and we're going to cut the budget.
Cary Edwards.
Bill, your question was to Mrs. Whitman about what she would do about taxes. I'm still trying to find that out. Seems to have more twists and turns than Michael Jordan on this issue.
Read the blueprint, Cary.
I've read the blueprint. Originally, she was opposed to the Florio tax and she wanted to roll it back. Then she said it was old. Then she opposed an immediate tax cut, which I believe is absolutely necessary to move New Jersey's economy forward and really create jobs. And we're still trying to find out where she stands on this issue and a whole lot of others. Jim Carvell, I think, maybe said it best in referring to maybe what we're looking for in this general election is she's as hard to nail down as a bowl of Jell-O.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wallwork, last year, Governor Florio and the Republicans in the legislature forged the Health Care Reform Act. It is an extremely complicated program. But let's take a look at just one aspect that may be causing a problem now. During this 1993 transition year before hospital revenues are deregulated, the state is capping hospital revenues at their 1992 levels. A number of urban hospitals are desperately trying to survive, and in fact, some have said they may have to shut down. And I believe Governor Florio is scrambling to get some money together to help bail them out. Now, I doubt that the threat of threatening the viability of hospital care in the inner city was the goal of Republican lawmakers when they passed this plan last November. Are you satisfied with this system? And if not, what specifically would you do to change it?
Well, no, I'm not satisfied with the system. Number one, of course, when I was in the legislature, I opposed the DRG, the diagnostic-related groups, and that's one of the problems that caused the shortfalls and the problems with the hospitals, especially in the urban centers. I believe that Blue Cross Blue Shield, if they're going to redline hospitals, and I don't think they should come out and say why, because I think every hospital should have the opportunity to make sure that they are providing health care. The thing that I'm concerned about in the whole health care program is the so-called managed care, because this is becoming a problem where a third-party provider is stepping in between the doctor and the patient, and it's looking over the doctor's shoulder and saying, this is what we're going to allow you to do, and it's almost as though the doctor is being directed. So I think the managed health care is a buzzword, but I think it's wrong, and I think that this is going to create bigger problems in the hospital field and in the medical field. I have a program of how we can handle the insurance commissioner and health commissioner working together to drive hospital costs down.
Mr. Edwards.
We in New Jersey have always guaranteed quality health care at the most affordable price we can for all of our citizens. And I'm proud to have been a part of that and a citizen of the state because we have supplied that particular service. The legislature and the governor jointly moved to do what you just described. And they did cut out and did adversely affect urban hospitals, and they are putting money back into that system to save those hospitals while we wait for the magic from Washington. The Clinton administration has promised to do dramatic things to health care. What they do will be the real issue about where New Jersey goes, and the next governor of the state of New Jersey is going to have to deal with what Washington does and react to it. I'm sorry to say it's that way, and either react negatively against this program and try to change it, or make it match New Jersey.
Ms. Whitman.
As you know, when the legislature passed the three-bill package, they were only taking the first steps, and Blue Cross Blue Shield is no longer the insurer of last resort. We're still waiting for the 5 basic and mini policies to come into effect, and that will make a difference because we have to ensure that we provide the best health care at the most affordable prices to everyone. We cannot have a two-tiered system of health care for inner cities and for those who live elsewhere in the state of New Jersey. But one of the things that we haven't done...
You concede that's what you have now.
I'm not conceding that's what we're having, but it's a problem that we have to face if we have to lose too many of the inner city hospitals. That's something about which we should be very concerned. The big thing that I believe we have missed in all this health care proposals and examinations is looking at preventive medicine. We're very good at treating sick people in this country. We're not good at preventing disease, and that's where our emphasis has got to be for the future.
Ms. Mano, your question now for Mr. Edwards.
Cary, New Jersey now bans the sale and possession of semi-automatic weapons. The National Rifle Association, as you know, went down to defeat earlier this year when an effort in the legislature failed to overturn the ban. Suppose a bill to change or to overturn the ban reached your desk as governor. Would you support taking some guns out of the ban, or would you veto any attempt to change the current law?
Well, I think it would depend on what the proposal was, and I'd have to evaluate that at the time, Rita. But I took a position 4 years ago when I ran for governor against the sale, distribution, importing, or exporting of assault weapons in this country, not just in New Jersey. And I've had a long-standing position on that. The issue is not the ban. The issue is, are we going to arrest people who have guns, criminals who have guns, and get guns out of their hands? In my last year as Attorney General, we made 8,800 arrests. Jim Florio, despite all his rhetoric on assault weapon bans, only arrested 7,000 people over the last, 1991, the last year we have numbers for. The issue is, are we going to get guns off the street and stop people from being killed? That's the issue. I've proposed a strike force as part of my criminal package to deal with that specific issue. I have a record, a very substantial record, on having accomplished that in the past. I'll get guns off the street, make New Jersey streets safer. I made one promise in this campaign. After 4 years of an Edwards administration, the streets will be safer and crime will be reduced, I promise.
Ms. Whitman.
Well, Cary, I'm glad you took a position 4 years ago on the assault ban because no one was able to get one out of you this year when it was being discussed. I had taken a position on that. I said that while I feel the bill is a bad bill, there are weapons in there that are not the weapons about which people are concerned, 22s, target pistols. There are also weapons in there that should not be on the streets of New Jersey, that don't belong here, and I could not have supported that override, and I would not. But the bill does need to be cleaned up. We need to understand that you don't make criminals of honest people who bought their guns legally, have never done anything wrong with them. The emphasis has got to be on those who commit crimes with weapons. That's where we've got to put our force and our emphasis. Those are the people we want to get at.
Response now from Jim Wallwork.
Well, Bill, as a West Point graduate and an Army officer, I fired all these weapons as recently as a year ago at Fort Dix. I was the only one that stood with the police and said the ban should not be overridden. Cary didn't take a position, as Christie points out, but Christie said you should grandfather in the 50 to 300,000 that were still out on the street. I said no. I had a specific proposal. We'd buy back all of those weapons because the state, I recognize that the Constitution, Second Amendment, citizens have a right to bear arms. Those weapons should be bought back in, and I had a proposal of whether those weapons could be rented at secure firing ranges, such as Fort Dix, where people could rent them, fire the weapons, and help to defray the cost of the buyback. So I had a total program. I think it was feasible, and it still is feasible today.
Thank you.
Dan Weissman has a question, and we go back to Christie Whitman.
Christie, would you maintain the homestead rebate program as it's presently constituted? Would you expand it? Would you restrict it or eliminate it? And do you see the homestead rebate as a political tax giveaway or a valid property tax relief?
Well, Dan, I'm glad you asked the question because, again, my position has been so badly distorted by people. As I have said from the beginning, given the fiscal condition of this state, we have to look at everything. The basic premise underlying any administration of mine is we must protect those people who rely on the homestead rebate to stay in their homes, to live in the state of New Jersey. But if there's a better way of protecting them, senior citizens, disabled, than to take money from them, send it to the politicians in Trenton, and then give it back to them at a discount, we ought to be willing to look at that. But the overriding concern has got to be to protect those people in the whatever way makes sense. And that means that the homestead rebate has to be looked at as part of the overall fiscal plan and the needs of the state of New Jersey and the total plan. And if we can do it in a better way, a way that protects people, then I believe that's our responsibility. But common sense tells you that any time you take money and you send it to the politicians in Trenton and you get it back at a discount, you're not making a whole lot of sense and you're not necessarily working in the people's best interest.
Jim Wallwork, your response, please.
Well, Dan, I have an 87-year-old mother who lives in South Jersey, and she has her own home, and she loves living in there, and it's very important to her. And I came across a couple, 72 years of age, lived in Howell. They were going back to work after having retired because they were afraid they were going to be taxed and they were going to lose their home, taxed out of their home. I favor the homestead rebate for senior citizens and for handicapped people. I think it's very important that they have the opportunity to live in the home and live in a home environment that they're familiar with. I would, however, change it so there wouldn't be the individual check being mailed out. That's wrong. It's too costly. Put it to the local town, be on the property tax bill, so they would get the credit on the property tax bill. Much more cost effective.
Cary Edwards.
Well, it's about the fifth or sixth different explanation on property tax rebates I've heard from Mrs. Whitman. I don't think she understands what being governor of the state of New Jersey really is. It's a very serious business. There are 250,000 seniors out there who rely on those taxes, those tax rebate checks coming in to stay in their homes. It's the only valid property tax relief program that the people of New Jersey really believe is valid. It's the only one they get a check for. I've been around for 16, 17 years and watched the debates on property tax rebates. It works. It's the real and the only real property tax relief programs around. She said, funny as it seems, $500 is a lot of money to people and would not guarantee it 4 months ago. That's different than the explanation I just heard.
It's been exactly the same.
All right, Ms. Superville has a question now for Mr. Wallwork.
Jim, President Clinton has a cabinet that he says looks like America, and Governor Florio has had at least 6 women, 4 blacks, and 2 Hispanics in his cabinet at various times. Have you given any thought to the people who would be in your cabinet if elected governor, and how ethnically or racially diverse would it be?
Well, yes, I have. We have talented men and women in the state of New Jersey, and the first criteria that I would have is that I would appoint people from the state of New Jersey. And I would appoint, frankly, good conservative Republicans that are going to carry out my conservative policies. I'm proud to be conservative, and I think that's what we need. We've had the Jim Florio liberal policies, and we've seen what it's done. It's killed jobs, and it's killed the economy in the state of New Jersey. So I would be looking for talented men and women, whatever their color, whatever their ethnic background. I think that we would have a diverse group, and I know that we have talented people all over. I have many, many people in mind, but I haven't given any commitments. But having grown a little older and having had the opportunity to see people grow and mature, I'm very confident that I could be a good governor, and I would have great people, not working only in my cabinet, but in sub-cabinet and other positions.
Cary Edwards' response.
And Darlene, I participated as counsel to the governor for 4 years in the selection of the Kane cabinet. And people of all walks in life, including Mrs. Whitman, who happens to be sitting right here as one of the individuals who was chosen to work in the Kane administration. And we did successfully choose people of all race and color and creed and gender, and we have them here. And every ethnic group in the state of New Jersey has some fine, fine people. And we need to get the best from the people of New Jersey to serve the people of New Jersey in a cabinet. I know exactly how to go about doing that. I know exactly the type of people we need. New Jersey is broken, very badly broken. I have the skills and the background to fix it. And it's those people from all over New Jersey, from all walks of life, that we'll be able to attract into an Edwards administration and turn this state around.
Christy Whitman.
Darlene, well, I don't believe in setting quotas. Any cabinet of mine would be very reflective of the state of New Jersey, and that means when you have a state that has over 50 different languages spoken in it, you've got to have people from all walks of life, all races, all colors, all creeds, because that's what gives our state its strength, and that's what would give a cabinet its strength. I've met a lot of fine people as I've spent the last 3.5 years traveling around this state and listening to and talking with the people of this state. And I look forward to being able to bring some new faces in, some people who have good ideas, who are willing to take on the system and make the kind of changes we need to make to turn this state around and make it great again.
Thank you. I have a question now for Mr. Edwards. Mr. Edwards, you came up with an interesting phrase a few moments ago, the expectations of magic from Washington. The voters of New Jersey helped to build Bill Clinton into the White House with their votes, and that's the first time, I believe, that New Jersey has voted for a Democratic president since Lyndon Johnson 28 years ago. They put him in the White House with their money. $4 million in campaign contributions from New Jersey, second only to the contributions to Bill Clinton from Arkansas, in fact, again, if my figures are correct. Given all this, given the diminished resources that are available from the federal government for cities and states in times of unemployment, the need for money for repairing the infrastructure, candidly, is this a time for a Republican to be governor of New Jersey?
I think it is a perfect time for a Republican to be governor of New Jersey. New Jersey is a very complex state and has a significant number of problems, and it needs a governor that has experience and capacity. I have trouble when I walk around New Jersey finding many people now who say they voted for Bill Clinton, despite the numbers that you and I both know that are there. I think Bill Clinton becomes the epitome of someone who has been ill-prepared to walk into the presidency. I'm prepared to walk into the governor's office, turn the lights on, and fix this broken state. And I think that may be the major differences between us here as candidates. It is our experience, our background, where we come from, our capacity to know what really goes on in the families, in the neighborhoods, in the schools, and on the streets of this state. I grew up on the streets of East Patterson, New Jersey, in a single-parent household. I've worked in the private sector, I've started businesses, I've worked in all levels of government. I understand what New Jersey faces. I'm prepared, like Bill Clinton was not prepared, to be governor of this state.
Ms. Whitman.
What New Jersey needs is a new governor, beyond anything else, because what this governor has done to the state of New Jersey has been unconscionable as far as I'm concerned, and I believe very definitely it's time for a Republican governor. This state is a microcosm of the nation, and this president cannot ignore this state. We have a good, strong congressional delegation. We'll be able to work together to make things happen. But the most important thing is to understand that what happens in New Jersey is reflective of what's happening around the rest of the country. We've got to solve the problems here, and how we solve those problems, and we can use what we've seen happen in other states where we've had Republican governors come in after bad Democrat governors in Massachusetts and in Michigan. We can make a difference, and it hasn't rested on who the president is. It's very much the business of the governor of the state of New Jersey.
Jim Wallwork.
Well, Bill, as a conservative businessman who's run a business successfully for 25 years and spent 16 years in the state legislature, I know the nuts and bolts of state government. And one of the reasons I decided to run for governor was that I didn't like what Florio was doing in Trenton, and I didn't like what I saw Bill Clinton doing down in Washington. Florio want bigger government, bigger bureaucracy, and they're moving this state and this nation toward Eastern Europe. And Eastern Europe is trying to move to the free enterprise system and the entrepreneurial skills. This is why I'm running for governor, because I want New Jersey to be one of the leaders in entrepreneurial skills and in business, and we've got to stop this erosion of this big government, unnecessary rules and regulations and bureaucracy that Clinton and Florio put on the people of the state and the nation.
Thank you.
Let's have a change of pace. We're going to give the candidates a few minutes now for an open discussion to raise their own issues, challenge each other's views, or perhaps clarify a position or two. And in the unlikely event that we need something to get things started, let me pose a question that the three of you can either deal with or ignore if you so desire, but let me put it out anyway for your consideration. We have heard all of you at one time or another question each other's qualifications to become governor of New Jersey. The fact is that one of you has dealt almost exclusively with matters of crime. One of you served in the legislature at a time when the economy was booming and governance was frankly easier than it is today. And one of you has held a position of heading a public utility regulatory agency, but has never held elective office at all.
Oh, yes. No, you're wrong in that. I was a freeholder for 5 years.
I apologize. Wouldn't Jim Florio be correct if he said that in many ways none of you has the appropriate qualifications to be governor
Jim Florio,
of New Jersey?
Jim Florio never had a job in the private sector. He's a lawyer, he's a professional politician, and we don't need a professional politician as governor. I think we need a businessman, one who's run a business successfully, knows what the bureaucracy does to business, and can relate. I've taken 2 tanks out of the ground. I've collected money for the Division of Taxation. I put trucks on the road so I know what DOT does in the Division of Motor Vehicles. I've done all these things. I know and I relate, and I have 16 years of governmental experience. Now, when we talk, Mrs. Whitman is done as freeholder, and I'm sure she can respond. She's a liberal and a big tax and spend person. I'm a conservative. I want less taxes and less government. But so far as when
Jim will talk the whole. He'll talk the whole.
Wait a minute.
He's got a machine gun that'll never stop.
Let me just make one point. Look, when she was freeholder, it went from 49.9, the budget, up to 95 million. That's a 90% increase in the budget in 5 years, and she voted 4 times for salary increases for herself as a freeholder. That's a big spending liberal. It's wrong, and I don't think we need that as government.
I think there is a significant difference between the three of us, and a lot of differences on issues. There's a lot of differences about us personally. And I think those differences need to be clearly understood by the voters of New Jersey.
Name one.
Well, our backgrounds alone. I grew up in a single-parent household on the streets of East Patterson. I have opened 2 service businesses. I got scholarships to college. I've been a local councilman, an assemblyman. I've been chief counsel of the governor. I've exercised with Tom Kean the powers of successfully running the state of New Jersey. Very proud of that particular era. Attorney General of the state of New Jersey, brought a multi-million-dollar international law firm into the state, and
jump in.
I'm waiting for you to go through all the qualifications.
This is unstructured. Kirsty, if you want to jump in, go ahead.
There's differences on taxes.
Let me jump in on all these things.
Yes,
there are a couple things here. There are a couple things here. First of all, our Constitution is purposely vague on what the requirements are in experience, quote unquote. I admit I am not a lawyer. I have not served in the legislature, and I did not run for governor once and get defeated. Jim Florio was all those things, and he brought the worst to government here in the state of New Jersey. But I have to say something to Jim, because I've heard this again, and Cary, you might want to listen, because you jumped in at the last debate to say that it was absolutely true that when I maintain, which is true, that the tax rate in Somerset County went down, you said that was meaningless, that nobody paid less taxes. And so for the fun of it, I went and looked at some taxes.
Oh, Christy,
and let me take, wait a minute, no, wait a minute. Cary, listen for a moment.
Increased taxes to
listen.
And you granted utility rate increases to big utility companies.
Part of the problem. You've got to learn to listen. It makes a
Whitman
difference in your life if you listen to people,
I always listen.
Yeah, well, not very well. Jim, as a conservative businessman, it would seem to me that what you want in life is your equity to go up and taxes to go down. And so I looked at some taxes. When I first became a freeholder in 1984 in Somerset County,
it was 83.
There was elected in 83. You don't swear in until 84.
Okay, 84.
You'd better learn that too.
I'm sorry.
There was an individual who had a home, had just moved into a newly constructed home. It was a little over $260,000. The taxes being paid on that home were over about $6,900 in taxes.
We're running out of time.
In 1987, my last year as freeholder, that same house was worth over $600,000, and the taxes had gone to $6,200. That means the equity more than almost tripled, and the taxes went down. If that doesn't sound familiar, it should, because that's your home. That's what happened to your taxes while I was a freeholder in Somerset.
You're wrong, Christy. You're wrong, Christy. And I will produce my tax records of my home and my business to show they all went up.
The change of pace was interesting, wasn't it?
And there'll be another one.
And there'll be another one. Yeah. Time now, however, to begin round 2 of our debate. We return to our question and answer format. Each candidate will have an equal amount of time to answer once again. Darlene Superville begins with a question now to Ms. Whitman.
Christy, you support giving public money to parents so they can send their children to any school, be it public, private, or parochial, and none of your opponents agree with that. Tell us why you favor this arrangement, and don't you think it's a bit unfair to use public money to subsidize the private education of another child when that money could be used to improve the public education
I'm
system?
glad you asked that, Darlene, because a lot of it's a very complicated issue, but what you've asked is very real. First of all, I have always maintained that the most important thing is to protect the public school system in the state of New Jersey. We have got to make it so that we're giving our children a decent education. I believe in choice in the public school system, and I've written articles on that. But I have talked over the last 3.5 years to too many parents of children in school districts that are needy school districts who've looked me in the eye and said, you don't give me the choice. If you give me choice within this public school system, you're not giving me any choice at all. It would be the same money that's spent on those children now, no more, to be added to the system, only on a pilot project basis.
Response now from Mr. Wallwork.
How long is our time now? 30 seconds?
Response from Mr. Wallwork.
How long is our time? It seems short. I think Christy got short-changed.
30 seconds for you, Mr. Wallwork.
Okay, thank you. I support the vouchers for the public schools, but I believe in initiative and referendum. I believe that the voters of the state of New Jersey should make that determination if they want to have vouchers for private and religious schools. I think right now that's premature, because the first thing as governor that I'm going to focus on are jobs and rebuilding the economy and strengthening the public school sector, because those are priority number 1, jobs and strengthening the public school sector, and not getting sidetracked in voucher programs. That's a system that we can have initiative and referendum, let the voters decide once it's debated.
And Mr. Edwards, 30 seconds for you.
Chrissy, another one of those flip-flops. A few years ago you were against vouchers. Now you're for vouchers. Now it's a pilot voucher program. It's going to cost us $70 million just for your pilot in Jersey City. It's between $1 billion and $2 billion if you do it statewide, and it does nothing to improve the educational system. I understand that educational system. I wasn't the one who said I'm not informed enough, so I don't vote in public school education. You need to do more than talk to people about education. You need to live it. You need to be a part of it for your public life. You haven't been.
All right, again, it is Rita Mano's turn, and this time Rita's question goes to Jim Wallwork.
Jim, Chief Justice William Rehnquist recently urged Congress to abandon mandatory sentencing laws targeting drug crimes because they're having no deterrent effect but are contributing to the overcrowding in jails. In New Jersey, would you consider eliminating state mandatory sentencing for some drug crimes, giving justices more discretion in sentencing? And if not, are you ready to spend the money necessary for more prisons?
Well, I certainly would be appointing tough prosecutors and tough judges to go after crime. 6% of the career criminals are the ones that are committing 90% of the crime. So we have to go after these people and literally put them in jail and throw the key away. So far as drugs are concerned, I want to make sure that we go after education. We have to reduce the demand. And once we can reduce the demand, then we can begin to attack the drug problem. So the answer is I would be tough on those drug pushers and tough on the career criminals.
Cary Edwards.
I would suggest that Chief Justice Rehnquist go with Mrs. Whitman, who agrees with his position, onto the streets of New Jersey and ask people if they think we should not be as tough on crime as we have been. We need not just to have tough laws, but we need to have tough enforcement. I was the chief enforcement officer of this state. I controlled, you might say, the cops and the prosecutors. I didn't have the whole system. Make me governor of this state. I'll make the streets safer, and I won't make it. I won't redo the mandatory sentences. I'll increase some of them.
Christy Whitman.
To say that Chief Justice Rehnquist isn't tough on crime is an extraordinary statement. But suffice it to say, what he was talking about is the fact that mandatory minimums in and of themselves have not done the job. I would not support more mandatory minimums. I would support, and I have supported in my crime prevention package, extended sentences to allow the judges who need to be away for the period of time they need to be. But judicial discretion was outlined under the Constitution for a reason, and we need to have that judicial discretion. Tough sentences, hard sentences, but not the mandatory minimum. They don't solve the problem.
Dan Wiseman, your question now for Cary Edwards.
Cary, some serious questions have been raised recently about the handling of multi-billion-dollar public bond issues in New Jersey by a federal investigation. We've got some key government officials involved. If ethics and perception are important to government, if you win a nomination, would you put strict limitations or maybe eliminate political contributions from investment bankers and special interests? And when you increase disclosure requirements of people coming to work for you, or simply not hire or appoint people with ties to the bond market for policy-making positions?
Jim, there's no question, Dan, there's no question Jim Florio failed to do what he promised to do in 1989. He did it about a week and a half ago in the middle of the scandal, which is to bring disclosure, to bring competition to the public financing of New Jersey. And yes, I would, absolutely. But the question really is, more important to the voters, why did we increase our public indebtedness in the state of New Jersey over the last 3.5 years by 40%? Hundreds of millions of dollars we're going to have to spend as taxpayers to pay that debt. What motivated that particular move? That's more important, I think, to the voters than just the ethics question, which I also think is important. But the public indebtedness is far more significant.
Christine Whitman, a 30-second
Dan,
answer.
as you know, I have called for Joe Salima to take leave of absence because I think that perception is so very important. I would support, and I do support, the open competitive bidding that the governor has now moved toward, a little late, but he has moved toward it. And I've also called for a return to the kinds of blind trust standards that were exercised during the Kane administration years, changed for this administration. If those had been in place, he never would have been able to place his Armaco stock in a blind trust. It would not have qualified, and that's very important. Small holdings, not easily saleable, would not have qualified.
30 seconds for your response, Mr. Wallwork.
Dan, when I was in the state Senate, I introduced legislation for a two-step bid, and this would have handled not only bonds, but professional services such as architects, engineers, and public relations people. These are the ones that have the milk of the politics, giving the money to the politicians. Had they passed my legislation with the two-step competitive bid, we wouldn't have had the problem today. I've urged Governor Florio for him and Mr. Salima to hold a press conference, lay the facts out on the table for the public so the public can be assured what the problems are. He hasn't done that. I think he should.
I have a question for all three of you. Until Jim Florio was elected governor, voters in South Jersey often felt frustrated, often felt ignored by the governor's mansion, often felt disenfranchised. I think many of them felt like they were the state's second-class citizens. Now many of them think that they have one of their own in Trenton who purports to understand their problems and sympathize with their problems. All of you are from the northern part of the state. Why should the good people of South Jersey replace Jim Florio with one of you and run the risk of feeling ignored and misunderstood all over again?
The good people of South Jersey have suffered as much as anyone else. In fact, two of the highest unemployment rates in the state are to be found in South Jersey counties. Burlington has the second highest in the state of New Jersey. They have suffered as much, if not more. This is one state, and if there's been nothing that I have done over 3.5 years, it's to spend a lot of time traveling and talking to people in South Jersey to get them to understand and to understand their concerns. They have different issues, but they have the same issues. They need jobs, they need security, they need a government that works.
I was down in South Jersey, a milkshake on Route 130 on Sunday's a milkshake stand, and he said, I'm not voting for Florio, and I gave him a piece of literature. He said, I'm going to vote for you. You're a businessman. I have a mother-in-law in South Jersey. He's lived there 25 years. I'm in South Jersey frequently, and I have a program for a golden triangle. I want to have the McGuire Air Force Base, Rowan College, and the port section, and a new East Road built in South Jersey. I have a program for the people in South Jersey because we need it to improve their economy.
Mr. Brennan is going to sell Garden State. Of what the governor might do to be able to, well, any of you.
Okay.
Well, the light keeps going on and off.
Yeah, the light's going on and off.
Well, it's a busy intersection.
The South Jersey question is very important to me, Jim. It really is. I spent 7 or 8 years with the Kane administration after the referendum for secession working on South Jersey problems. Actually, we're not just talking to them, actually dealing with them. And I do have a plan. New Jersey and South Jersey is different. Its economy is much different than North Jersey's economy. We need to bring South Jersey into the foreign trade and global. I've got a plan to do that, to create urban enterprise, foreign trade zones in the Camden, South Jersey, DRPA area, Pomona Airport. They need to be just as involved in international trade as North Jersey is. I can do it, and I've been there and I've done it before.
We have an opportunity for a free-for-all, what we call crosstalk, and jobs have become increasingly important during the course of this debate. So in the 3 minutes we have for this, about 2.5 or 3 minutes we have left, let's talk about jobs. It has become clear over the past couple of weeks and months that even President Clinton has a very difficult time at job creation, which is what everybody says is needed. Now, we've touched on it during the course of this debate. I wonder if all of you would, in about the 3 minutes we have left, get specific. What would you really do, given the reality of downsizing, given the reality that people are going into overtime rather than hiring new workers? What can a governor of New Jersey really do to create new jobs? Who wants to begin?
Bill, you got to strip out the unnecessary rules and regulations that are stifling business and killing jobs. This is number one. This is what the business people say. Now, Mrs. Whitman and Cary, too, have targeted special interest tax credits that they want to give to special businesses. That, to me, is a liberal approach. It's wrong. I want to see, and as a business person, I want to see the lowest taxes for business across the board for the working men and women and business. Business people want certainty. They want a level playing field. Okay. And this is what we have when we have lower taxes for everybody, not targeted tax credits.
I have Crawford. We've talked about it on this program. Bill, I have a plan for New Jersey's future. It does have a section on jobs and the economy, and a major section. And I've talked about very specific tax cuts that need to be made now that we can't afford to wait. There is an investment in tourism in the state of New Jersey. It's major industry. I've talked about foreign trade zones for southern New Jersey.
And I have an entire plan, too, called the revitalization, economic blueprint for revitalization of New Jersey, and it speaks specifically to what we can do to help create jobs. And you know the kinds of problems that this next governor has to face, and it's something this governor hasn't done a very good job of. We look at the need to dredge our ports. There is no question, but we have got to dredge the ports in North Jersey. We have got to make those viable again. But you don't answer that and then say the only alternative is to dump the dredge spoils off Sandy Hook, because that's going to hurt jobs and it's going to hurt tourism in the southern part of this state. That's why I have supported putting those dredge spoils on barges. But those are the kinds of complicated questions and problems, and they're all job creation.
Let me make one point. Any Republican candidate here will do a better job creating jobs in New Jersey than Jim Florio.
Absolutely.
Jim
No
Florio
question
doesn't
about
understand there's a link, a very specific link between what happens in the private sector and what government does. He believes they live in two entirely different worlds.
We end the debate portion in agreement. It is now time for the final portion, however, of the Republican gubernatorial debate here in New Jersey. Each candidate has 1 minute and 30 seconds for a closing statement. Again, the order of the candidates was determined by a drawing done before the broadcast. We begin tonight with the closing statement from Mr. Wallwork.
Well, Bill and fellow New Jerseyans, New Jersey's a great state. We have wonderful people in the state of New Jersey, talented men and women. But the $2.8 billion Florio tax package has killed the economy. We have now a 9.1% unemployment rate. People and families are hurting. We need to have new leadership in the state of New Jersey. In Hackensack, a few weeks ago, I met a young woman, a 27-year-old mother of 2 daughters. Her 7-year-old daughter was there at the meeting with me, and she had a reading book. And I could tell that this was a good family. But this mother was telling me that her husband had spent time in the hospital the year before. They had an $11,000 hospital bill. He was in night. She had a little job in the day. They were barely making ends meet. But she said to me, I didn't have a chance to go to college, but my 2 daughters will have a chance to go to college. And I was struck by her determination, and my heart went out to her. We need here in New Jersey real fundamental change. We can make sure that New Jersey can grow again, that we can create jobs for people in the state of New Jersey, that we can provide a better education for our children, and we can provide quality of life for everyone in the state of New Jersey.
Thank you.
That's my goal as governor. I still have a little time left on the stop machine, sir.
Okay, all right.
And I promise you, as governor, I will be a governor that people in the state of New Jersey can be proud of.
I certainly had no intention of taking away any of your time.
The stop sign hadn't gone, Bill.
1 minute and 30 seconds for a closing statement from Christine Whitman.
New Jersey stands at a crossroads. We can either continue with the policies that have cost us over 300,000 jobs, have seen our household bankruptcy rate rise to 1 out of every 110, or we can take control of our government and take it back. You know, people say that those are just numbers. They're real people. We did an ad shoot the other day. We were filming an advertisement, and we used as a backdrop a store that had gone out of business. When we'd finished with that particular shoot and I was walking across the street, a young boy went by, about 18, and he looked at me and he said, "Thanks for adding in injury." I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "That was my mother's store. She'd had that store for 7 years and had to close it in January, and the hurt and the pain were so real and so near the surface. That's what this is all about. We have got to create jobs again in New Jersey. We've got to restore integrity to state government. And we have got to bring the people into the process and be willing to say to politics as usual, it can't be politics as usual anymore. This is a wonderful state. It has everything it needs to be number one. Not number one in unemployment, not number one in regulation, not number one in taxes, but number one in ideas, innovation, and growth. And with your help, I look forward to changing the one thing that has kept us from reaching that number one status, and that's leadership. Thank you.
All right, from Cary Edwards, 1 minute and 30 seconds, closing statement.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank WPVI and ABC and League of Women Voters for having us here this evening. And we're here really to talk to you, the listening audience, about our ideas, our visions, and what our experiences is to lead New Jersey out of the doldrums. 51% of the people of New Jersey don't want to live in New Jersey anymore. This is a state that's very, very badly broken, not only economically, but its spirit. I'm here to solicit your help and your support to help rebuild New Jersey and to create a new and a better New Jersey for us all. A new New Jersey. Have a plan. We've developed that plan after a lot of thought and consideration. It's a plan about making street for you and for me and for my children, my daughters who, my wife gave them mace for Christmas because they're afraid. It's about creating jobs so that we can survive. It's about an education system that gives our young people the ability to have the skills they need to get a job in life. I did. I grew up in this state. This state gave me the capacity to grow up and to prosper and to have a wonderful life. I want to see that my children and my grandchildren and people today have it. My plan to get back to basics, a plan for New Jersey's future, is real. I'm here. I want your help. I want your votes on June 8th. I want your votes on November 2nd. But more importantly, I want your help to build a better and new New Jersey for us all, for me, for you, for our children, and for our grandchildren. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, all three of you.
Folks, thank you. Our debate is now over. We want to thank the Republican candidates for governor who were in the Trenton bureaus of WPVI. I want to thank the members of the panel who joined us tonight as well. Rita Mano of the Courier-Post, Dan Weissman of the Star-Ledger, and Darlene Superville of the Associated Press.
We also thank very much the League of Women Voters of New Jersey for their commitment to the debate process. And remember, the New Jersey Republican primary for both parties, in fact, is June 8th. For now, I'm Bill Buetel of WABC-TV.
And I'm Jim Gardner of WPVI-TV. Good night, and thank you for watching.